The child's cries pierced the night, tiny fists pounding on a locked door, breath turning to mist in the freezing air. Inside, warm lights glowed, laughter floated from the living room. But outside, a little girl and an old woman shivered, their skin turning pale, their hope fading. Behind that locked door stood the wife, elegant, proud, untouched by the cold, glancing once through the curtain before turning away. She thought no one would know, no one would see. But in just 7 minutes, her husband's headlights would cut through the dark, and everything she'd tried to hide would come crashing into the light. Have you ever discovered a truth so cruel it shattered your trust forever? Tell us in the comments. Before we begin, hit subscribe. It's appreciated. It had been months since David last came home without warning. Work had swallowed his days, meetings had stolen his weekends, and the city had drained every piece of peace he once had. Tonight, he just wanted quiet, to surprise his family, to feel that warmth he missed so much. He imagined his mother smiling, his daughter running into his arms, and his wife's gentle embrace waiting at the door. The drive back through the snow was long, but his heart felt light. Streetlights reflected off the icy road as he pulled into his driveway, his car crunching softly over the frozen gravel. Everything looked still, too still. No movement behind the curtains. No shadow passing by the window. Just silence, except for the distant hum of the engine. He stepped out, hands deep in his coat pockets, breath visible in the freezing air. That's when he heard it, a soft whimper. Then another. He turned toward the sound, his pulse quickening. There, by the porch, in the dim glow of the security light, he saw 2 figures huddled together. At first, he thought it was some kind of mistake, maybe neighbors seeking shelter, maybe stray wanderers. But as he drew closer, the truth began to sink in. The old coat, the familiar scarf, the tiny boots he'd bought last Christmas. It was them. His mother, his little girl. Frozen, trembling, locked out of their own home. He rushed to them, his heart thundering in disbelief. How long had they been out here? Why weren't they inside? And why, in a house full of warmth, was the door bolted shut against his family? If you were in his place, pulling into your driveway to find the people you love most suffering outside your own home, what would you do first? David's hands shook as he lifted his daughter into his arms. Her lips were blue, her tiny body limp with exhaustion. His mother could barely speak, her voice breaking as she whispered his name. The wind bit through his coat, but the chill he felt came from something far colder than the night air. It came from betrayal. He hurried to the front door and pounded against it. "Open up!" His voice echoed through the house. From inside, faint music played, a soft, cheerful tune that made his stomach twist. The lock didn't budge. He tried again, louder this time. Nothing. Finally, he pulled his phone from his pocket and called his wife. Through the window, he saw her silhouette move toward the door. The lock clicked, but when she opened it, her face was calm. Too calm. No shock, no guilt, just a kind of smug detachment. She stood there in her warm robe, holding a glass of wine as if nothing was wrong. David pushed past her and carried his daughter inside. The rush of heat hit him immediately, but it only made the injustice burn hotter. His mother stumbled in behind him, clutching her shawl. The contrast between the cozy home and what he'd just seen outside was unbearable. The smell of a fresh dinner, the fireplace crackling, the faint sound of laughter from the TV. He turned to his wife, searching her face for an explanation. She said nothing, only rolled her eyes. Finally, she spoke, her voice sharp, her words cutting deep. She said she didn't want them dirtying the couch again, that they should have known better than to come in without her permission. David felt something inside him break. His wife, the woman he thought he knew, had locked out his family in the dead of winter because of where they came from, how they looked, what she called their kind. His mother had warned him before the wedding. He never wanted to believe it. But now it was staring him in the face. The racism, the quiet disdain, the poison behind her polished smile. He looked at his daughter, tears frozen on her cheeks. His mother sat shaking, her hands wrapped around a mug he'd rushed to fill. The scene was silent, except for the soft hum of the heater, the same heater that had been running while they suffered outside. That silence didn't last long. His wife began talking again, her words a torrent of arrogance and justification. She said they should have known their place, that people like them don't belong in this neighborhood. Her tone carried the casual cruelty of someone who'd never faced consequence. David's anger rose, but so did something else, disbelief, sorrow, the crushing weight of realization. Every dinner conversation she'd dismissed his mother's stories, every comment about those people, every uncomfortable silence when race came up. He had ignored them all, thinking she'd grow out of it, thinking love could fix what hatred had built. Now, standing there with his family trembling from the cold, he knew love wasn't enough. The night deepened. His wife refused to apologize, and when David told her what she'd done was unforgivable, she laughed, that sharp, mocking laugh that shattered whatever was left of the man who once adored her. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He just looked at her, really looked, and saw what had been hiding beneath the surface all along. But the question was, what would he do next? Confront her in front of his daughter? Walk away that night and never look back? Or let silence speak louder than any words could? Stay with me, because what David did next would change everything. David stood frozen in the center of the living room, the same room where family photos lined the walls, smiling faces masking years of tension he'd refused to see. His mother's quiet sobs filled the air. His daughter clung to his leg, still shaking, still confused. And across from him stood his wife, untouched by remorse, sipping her wine as though the night were nothing more than an inconvenience. He felt something shift inside him, a stillness before a storm. His voice, when it came, was low and steady, the kind of calm that comes when anger burns too deep for shouting. He asked her why. Not for excuses, not for another justification, but for the truth. Her answer, because they don't belong here, fell like ice into the room. His mother closed her eyes, the pain too heavy to bear. Years of dignity, of silence, of enduring subtle slights, all erased in a single hateful sentence. David saw it now with unbearable clarity. This wasn't just cruelty. It was the rot of prejudice she had carried into his home, into his daughter's life. He moved toward the fireplace, his hands trembling not from cold, but from the weight of realization. Every framed photo, every shared memory suddenly felt false. His wife began to speak again, but her words were distant, meaningless. He didn't need to hear them anymore. He turned to his daughter, kneeling down to her level. Her small eyes looked up at him, searching for comfort, for safety, for what a father was supposed to provide. He whispered something only she could hear, and for the first time that night, she smiled faintly through her tears. Then he rose, took his mother's hand, and without another word, walked to the door. His wife's voice followed him, mocking, shouting, demanding. But David didn't stop. He opened the door wide, letting the freezing air rush back in, and stepped into the night. The same cold that once froze his family now felt strangely cleansing. As he buckled his daughter into the car and helped his mother inside, his wife appeared at the doorway, yelling that he'd regret this, that no one would believe him. But he knew this wasn't about belief anymore. This was about truth. The car engine rumbled to life. The headlights cut through the dark, just as they had when he first arrived. Only this time he wasn't coming home, he was leaving one. What do you think he'll do next? Should he expose her, or should he walk away in silence and rebuild his life elsewhere? Tell us what you'd do. The drive was quiet. The road stretched endlessly through the sleeping suburbs, headlights gliding over snow and shadow. In the back seat, his daughter had finally drifted into sleep, her small hand resting in his mother's. David gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles pale. He wasn't just leaving a house behind. He was leaving a lie. He stopped at a gas station, the hum of the engine fading into the cold air. His mother looked at him, eyes filled with sorrow, but also something stronger, pride. She didn't need to say a word. He understood. This moment, as painful as it was, meant freedom. No more pretending, no more silence in the face of cruelty disguised as love. For days, David stayed with a friend, while his wife maintained a flawless facade online, posting smiles that hid the truth. But David's heart had shifted. He saw through the illusion. His home was gone, but so was his blindness. He focused on rebuilding, teaching his daughter compassion over bitterness, showing her that racism, even cloaked in wealth, destroys. His mother shared stories of resilience, not victimhood, but strength. Weeks later, driving past his old house, David saw its warm glow. It seemed peaceful, but he knew peace without justice was empty. He drove on, understanding that walking away wasn't weakness, it was healing. Some wounds aren't visible, and the coldest nights aren't always outside. How many families are trapped by hate disguised as love? Share your thoughts below.